Yeah, what's going on, everybody? I guess this is just a video that because I just been bored, I've just been sitting back and just kind of watching everything, watching the show, watching what's been going on. I say the past 2 weeks. Basically the issue of George Floyd and how they got people, out here protesting slash, you know, rioting slash, looting or whatever they want to call it. But as you see right here, George Floyd was a 46-year-old. He died in Minneapolis, uh, say about a week ago. He was killed dealing with the situation with, the white police officers and everything of that nature. But this government has its ways, because they understand. Like, they have to find ways to make the world get triggered. And in doing so, see, they know the so-called black men and women are the influencers of the world. So when you can create such a situation like this, which is creating some sort of like race war in a sense, or a war against police brutality, or a war against the government itself in a sense, when you can create something like this, it is because the government themselves, they threw the rock and hid their hand. Like, they created the problem, create the problem, come in with some type of solution. But in the process, you use someone to do everything, or of course a multitude of people to do the job for you. So because I want to say it, because in America, a lot of so-called black people, we are very emotional, and we tend to, react to a lot of things instead of being proactive, meaning because this situation has caused a lot of uproar. So, and it's caused a lot of us to be, a bit emotional to the fact, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying you shouldn't be emotional to it or you shouldn't feel some type of way about it, because we as black people, we should, have some, we should have a soft spot for the one that look like us, you know. But this is all just a plan, a scheme by the government to use us in a sense of allowing us to do whatever we want to do within that time frame, to create more of a bigger issue than what it already is, so they could come in and bring the things that a lot of us say we didn't want. A lot of us say we didn't want Marshall's Law. We said we didn't want Marshall's Law. But when they can create a trigger for us to react, it creates a situation to where uh, if we don't act in a way to where it's uh, productive or beneficial, they can use us against each other in a sense to where they could bring in what they really want to bring in. Basically, we will be working for them. It won't be on paper, but we will be working for the government to be bringing in what they really want to bring in, which is probably Marshall's Law, which is probably because of social distancing, because of the COVID-19. Everybody's all clumped up together, rioting, looting, protesting. When you do that, now you got a so-called spread of of the virus even more, as they say. I don't believe in the hype of that virus, but when you have that, now when all this is over with, they're probably going to create such a huge boost in the numbers with the COVID-19. It's going to be ridiculous, you know. But yeah, that's a lot of what they have going on with that. They're trying to use us against each other. And then also, when you look at like the protesting part, you know, because, protests start because of the blacks or whatever. I was listening to Dr. Umar. He was talking about because in this country, when you look at the country of America or United States Inc., you have, I say, about over 250 million white people that live in this country. You have only 50 million, black people that live in this country. So when you're dealing with a position, a situation, to where if you're going to protest and everything of that nature, it should only be. I'm just saying if it's mainly so-called black people leading it, it should only be so-called black people leading it. It shouldn't be nobody else really joining in or intervening and doing anything of that sense, because like I just mentioned, the population differences between whites and blacks, the outnumbering. So if you had white people, so-called white people, to come and join the situation or join the protests, eventually, it will get to the point where the protest and its message will soon be a dilution. It will soon be diluted. It's just like you got a cup of coffee with no sugar in it, but you decide you want to add more sugar than the coffee. Eventually, the sugar's going to take over. And if you've been watching some of these protests or looking at some what they've been showing in the videos, you've been seeing more whites than blacks. Now, I'm not saying if it's in a different country or a city, if whites decide that they want to start their own protest, they could do it by themselves. But as blacks, we probably shouldn't have allowed a lot of them to even get into it, because now when they get into our protest or whatever, it's going to cause a dilution. And then it's going to get to the point where they're going to outnumber you. And when they outnumber you, they're going to overpower the protests, which probably started off peacefully until, once I've checked or, was looking on the videos and stuff of that nature, you had so-called white people starting the riots. Some of them working with the government, some of them as ploys, some of them probably weren't, but for the most part, we know how they do the protests. They bring in somebody else from way somewhere else. He probably don't even live in that city, and they bring him in, to create some ruckus with the cops and all that stuff, and burn stuff down and stuff of that nature. So I don't think it was the blacks necessarily starting the riots and things of that nature, but I've been seeing on social media that they've been trying to say that it was blacks starting that stuff, but really it wasn't. We know it wasn't, for the most part. Yeah, that was the part of that, you allowing them to overtaking the situation, to where now it's damn near their protest. See, our issue should be with the government. We doing these protests. We should be going to not Target, not Walmart, not none of the spots where we may have to go and buy food for the day or buy, get the things we need. Because of course we could burn it down and all that stuff, but a lot of us ain't planned out here to just say, okay, let's burn this down and do our own stuff, because there's not a lot of resources right now for so-called blacks. If you talk about the entire number of blacks, there's not that many resources for us to do that stuff. So for us to burn that stuff, I was kind of in disagreement with that. However, if you're gonna start, gonna get physical in some spots, that's why you have all the main government spots. You know where they are, the police stations, the city halls, the wherever, to try to get your point across. You know, you don't have to burn nothing, but you get your point across. You know but yeah, as far as so-called blacks and everything of that nature, that's who you supposed to be dealing with, the police, and you supposed to have. You do not supposed to be letting nobody else come into the situation. And then as far as the so-called whites, if they really care, they would be somewhere talking to their mother and father about all of this stuff. They wouldn't be just joining in with you just because they want attention, or they just want to join and respect the cause, or whatever, because they're not walking in so-called black shoes. So it's a bit, for the most part, so it's a bit different. You know, they should be talking to their parents, trying to change their parents' minds, because a lot of this stuff starts in the household. It all starts in the household. You talking about racism and everything of that nature. But I don't know. A lot of this stuff is spiritual. It's spiritual. You know, uh, this is what the government has done. They've created a situation to where now, if they wanted to, see, all this stuff is starting to come into play now. You're talking about homeschooling. You're talking about curfew. You're talking about Marshall's Law. Uh, all these things are coming in at one time. You got your super virus coming into play. And in Africa, they was talking about the Ebola once again. I don't know if they're gonna bring it back out, but that's what they was doing. I forgot which part. I'm thinking East Africa, but yeah, this is what they do. They create all these things to put everybody at a state of chaotic nature or energy. Put you at a confusion. To where you can act off your emotions without coming up with a solution to the issue. They just want you to react, and you know they just want you to do what they want you to do, basically. Like, they don't even have to come into play without making you do the play for them. So that's kind of like, that's the situation with all that stuff, man. As far as like the looting and everything of that nature, I will say this: when a company that has insurance on their property, once that stuff once their property gets burned down or anything of that nature, everything that's in that store is going to be insured, or at least that's what I think. I would believe so. I would believe everything in that store is going to be insured. So when that comes about, the looting probably is free. Like, everything in there after that is probably good to go. But I ain't necessarily promoting any of that mess. But if you're gonna do it, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, a burned property by a small, a mid, or large business, I'm sure it's going to be insured. So, they trying to look at so-called blacks because of that. But yeah, but everybody's looting, at the end of the day. But yeah, that's really all I was trying to bring up, as far as all of this. And then plus, if you look right here, I'm gonna bring it to the middle. The report stated that when you look on the autopsies, the reports stated that Floyd had tested positive for COVID-19 on April 3rd, but did not list COVID-19 as contributing to his death. Of course not. We're not going to contribute that to his death. That's blasphemy. That's crazy. We know that's not the issue. We know that's not the issue of why he died. He died because you know he didn't have the blood flow going to the oxygen. He didn't have the blood flow and oxygen to go to the brain, which probably interfered with certain situations. You know, But yeah, I find it kind of weird on here when you look up George Floyd. Um, what do I find weird on here? I don't see I don't see his date of birth. Like the only thing you see is you go to his name, incident, and then you go to incident. I mean, of course, it's gonna show all this other crap. Talking about the protesting and all that stuff, but yeah, all of this is just a governmental agenda to once again control the masses, whichever way they need to do it, whichever way they feel they need to do it, is to mainly control the masses. Like everybody out here thinks that they're important to the government. That's not the case. You know, when you look at the political wars, Democrats, Republic, they're two wings of the same bird. They're two horns of the same devil. Neither side is for you people. You know, it's so many different wars out here. You have your political war, which I just mentioned. You have your race war, which I just was talking about earlier. You have your religious war. You know, all the religious people, they go against each other. You have your gender war, just a bunch of confusion with the different races because everybody's being duped to do things a certain way. Because when you look at the romantic way of doing things, the monogamous marriages and relationships that has caused total confusion, you know, across America, because there were many tribes in this world, and many of these tribes went through polygamy, but that's really all I got to say about that. But yeah, you have your gender war going on with that. Uh, Men versus women. I mean, it takes two to have a great relationship. It takes two to build, you know, they always say build a village, but, a nation, whatever. Um, but yeah, you have many of these different wars. You have spiritual wars. Some people, have demons in them that they'll never be able to get out. Some people are fighting demons to this day. Some people are as pure as children, or are, as pure, until they get introduced to a bunch of things that you see on the TVs and the music and the entertainment and all that stuff of that nature. The social media is there to make you low vibrational. It's there to put you in a depression. It's there to make you overly emotional, so you won't be able to think for yourself. And it's fast paced now. It's just like a fast paced job now. It's nonstop, nonstop, nonstop. Commercials are shorter. You know, that's all that social media is for, and that's what this George Floyd situation was for. It was to create an uproar, to make people mad, depressed, upset, to also put you in a situation where you act emotionally. Uh, but yeah, that's what they always have done, controlling you for over thousands, thousands of years, not just 400 years. It was more than just a physical slavery. This was psychological across the board. When the Nazi had people going into that laugh gas, this is more than just. Even though this is an issue of so-called this is a so-called black issue. There's been issues across the board on every side for damn near forever, you know. But yeah, I mean, but yeah, A lot of people say they doing the looting and all that stuff for George Floyd, and I don't know. I don't know. Some people, I don't know. Some people call, they just want to loot just cause, you know. But hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. I think a lot of people want a lot of, attention off of it too. You got people on Instagram getting a lot of attention off of it also. But yeah, I was just falling back, just enjoying this show, seeing what fuckery, was going to happen and go on, just to see what actually happened, because I could tell that the way it was going, these news channels were highly promoting the George Floyd situation. You know, when you highly promoting something, that means you want the whole world to see. That means you want a whole group of people to act crazy. You want a whole crowd to act crazy. So, and now you got your celebrities kicking in and doing their thing. So this is what they've wanted, but they doing all this to bring in something that they actually wanted to bring in. You know, you got 40 million jobs lost. They want to bring in martial law. They want to have you at a point where you're at curfew. They want to keep you in the house, not mobile, in the house. They don't want you to have no sunlight, no energy. They don't want you to have no high vibration. They just want you to sit in the house on your cell phone, on your laptop, on your TV. They don't want you to learn. They want to kill you. They want to get rid of you. They want to depopulate you. This is what they want. A lot of us do not see it because we think it won't happen to us. But this ain't just about, you and me. That's very selfish to think. You have children out here every day who sit, and because they're not getting taught by none of their parents, some of them are either out there on the streets trying to find a mother or father, and some of them, if they are in the house with their parents, they just sitting in the house playing a fucking video game, because the video game is not really teaching them anything. Like, these kids got gifts, they got talents, they got things in their brain that makes them bright and intelligent and innocent. And when you introduce them to a situation to where they're doing nothing but playing a video game, and they doing nothing but being on social media all day, now they're being taught by the same confusion that has confused this whole entire world. So when you put them in a situation like that, they become the uninnocent, they become the unbright, they become, the next assholes out here. They become the next people of that nature. And I know it's all a surface problem, but we all know it has a root beginning. But that's what we should do. Just try to promote positivity, high vibration, and try to get our, future kids on the right path, because when they on social media and they see things like this all day, it causes nothing but low energy, low vibration. But that's all I really have for this. This is ROBV. Like, share, and subscribe. And yes, I am out. Peace.